Yes, good evening, everyone. I hope everything is visible. Visible, audible once again. चलो start करते हैं. Okay. Mansi, please recording. Yeah. Okay, so economic survey chapter number 10. This is environment and climate change. Important chapter, but majorly factual information. Okay. You will not get much of the information here. It's more or less factual information. Okay. So factual information will quickly discuss, and apart from that, if any subjective thing is there, we will be giving decent amount of time to that. Okay. Everyone clear about this in the chat box? Okay. Now, building a resilient and competitive development driven India. Okay, this is the aim of this chapter. It means here economic survey is saying that yes, you keep the agenda of growth first. Okay, you keep the agenda of growth first, but green always. Okay, green always, but in the right sequence. So growth first, green always. This is the aim of this chapter. Now when you see, climate change is no longer as environmental issue. We have seen in multiple conferences throughout the world, summits, whatever you read in the newspaper or the countries publish in their, we can say, agenda, conferences, etc. The agenda is clear that climate change is no longer an environmental issue alone. Okay. So survey starts by certain things. Survey says that climate change today, okay, listen carefully. Climate change today is a macroeconomic, fiscal, trade and developmental issue. Macroeconomic, fiscal, trade and developmental issue, not just an environmental. Because climate risk affects several things. Climate risk affects inflation, that is food and energy. Climate risk affects public finances, mitigation, disaster, etc. It affects infrastructure, land acquisition, concretization of our cities. So infrastructure durability. It affects our growth potential as well. Growth potential. It affects inequality as well. Like summers are coming. If you don't have proper sleeping arrangements, your productivity goes down. So that's inequality. If you see in the summertime, labor are always tired. When you see construction workers, they are always tired because they do not get decent enough sleep during night hours in summers. So they struggle, drained their energy. Okay, so climate change is no longer environmental. So environmental policy must be judged by developmental outcomes, not like moral rhetoric. Okay. So global climate agenda has reached an inflection point. It means where you need to take a decision. Growing gaps between ambition and practical implementation. Advanced economies like European countries show rapid decarbonization without adequate grid readiness, storage, and institutional capacity. Can create energy instability, higher cost, and system fragility. So if you are adopting too fast, then also you will be in trouble. Renewable expansion must account for full system cost, including storage, transport, transmission, upgradation, and a balancing capacity and reserve power. So renewable energy must be compensating the non-renewable with proper smooth supply chain. The global climate discourse is shifting towards more pragmatic, evidence-based approach. recognizing uncertainties, need to balance climate goals, energy security, competitiveness, social stability, and development itself framed as a form of climate adaptation. A strong infrastructure, health system, economic growth, enhance resilience. So, in the introductory paragraph, the survey says that it's not just environmental issue alone. Plus, if the transition is gradual, it is possible. Now, if you see India's climate approach is on three pillars. Adaptation first, strategy due to high vulnerability. Because we are not ready. Indians are not ready for that. Balanced mitigation pathway with renewables, nuclear, hydrogen, and efficiency. So we are a proud nation using EVs, but those EVs are fueled also by coal, thermal energy. More efficient than other, but yes, still the problem persists. We're not ready infrastructure wise. Strengthening domestic climate finance given limited global capital flows. I hope you can understand this. Okay. Now, public investment led climate adaptation. How government is investing? It means public investment co-development sectors. Adaptation in mainstream economic planning rather than treated as standalone climate intervention. It means every economic development you do, you need to have concern for environment, whatever you do. And this is because of public investment, government-led initiative. Rising domestic expenditure. So you can say adaptation and resilience both. Adaptation means adapting to the new kind of energy, and resilience means strong defense towards any fluctuation. Okay. So you can say that this has increased. So a strategic shift towards self-funded resilience. Limited international adaptation finance. Okay. National Action Plan on Climate Change. You must have heard about this in the newspaper multiple times. It anchors adaptation through 9 national missions, many with strong adaptation focus. National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture, National Water Mission, National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, Health and Climate Change, Green India Mission, implemented by respective nodal ministries. So this is NAPCC. This is National Action Plan on Climate Change with the public funds. It means government's initiative. Now, sectoral adaptation, you can say agriculture, per drop more crops. So we can say climate resilient farming, saving water, saving soil, water management. Again, you can say rainwater harvesting, and micro irrigation and all. Health. So health risk related to climate change, like you can say extreme heat creating problem. Urban resilience, so climate adaptation into Swachh Bharat mission, sustainable urban transport. If you see, Indore is the cleanest city. I remember one girl is from Indore. Indore sells its garbage to Gujarat and earns 300 crore. 300 crore from ash. So you can say if you have urban resilience, you can start making money. So political will, iska matlab politicians and bureaucrats, if they have the willpower, they can do anything possible. They can do anything possible. Coastal and ecosystem resilience. National Coastal Mission for Climate Resilient Coastal Infrastructure. MISTI, mangrove initiatives, restoration of mangroves, wetland conservation, to enhance flood moderation, water security, etc. So coastal ecosystem resilience. You must have seen in the videos of Dhanushkodi as well. Dhanushkodi is a place in Tamil Nadu. Okay. It's our last point towards Sri Lanka. We see. Then federal coordination. Federal coordination means coordination between union and the states. So adaptation implemented through multi-level governance. National framework provide policy coherence. States operationalize intervention via public programs. Local institutions and communities play a critical role. So integration with livelihoods and rural development. How? By having missions like Vikasit Bharat, Rozgar and Ajivika Mission, climate resilience in employment and livelihood scheme as well. So coordination is required. If union is going in one direction, a state in another, there won't be any climate coordination. So vulnerability will be there. Like India suffers from heat waves, India suffers from flood, drought, erratic monsoons. Like recently we have seen rainfall. Although these rainfalls we have seen throughout the years, it's not new for us. Around Holi, you always see rainfall. It's not just the climate change. But India contributes approximately 4% of global emission. So India contributes around 4% of global emission, but houses almost 17% of world population in India. Like in India, heat stress affects agriculture and labor productivity both. And a flood related infrastructure damaged in urban areas and rural areas, they damage. So India bears disproportionate climate cost. Okay. Okay, so here comes the arguments. What are those arguments? Let's see. So here is state action plans. So you can say how states are adopting, adaptation-led, district-level risk, convergence, and outcome-based monitoring. So here you can say, in this picture, this is clearly depicting two different parts. Okay, now we have sub-national initiatives. Sub-national. So Meghalaya is the example. Community-led water security model. Okay, addressing dry springs, declining discharge of groundwater. Megarize focus on watershed treatment, forest restoration, protection of vulnerable catchments like these areas. GIS mapping, 55,000 plus springs enable scientific planning. 500 plus community water harvesting project. So you can say people-led development. So spring and catchment restoration. Then next is Tamil Nadu, coastal restoration and blue economy. We have seen multiple times in the news in blue economy. You must have seen on our Instagram post as well. Blue economy. So target residents across this almost 1,000-kilometer coastline to vulnerable to erosion, storm surges, sea level rises. So integrates coastal biodiversity restoration, pollution control, livelihood diversification, climate proof infrastructure. Okay. This links ecological protection, income security for coastal communities. Ecosystem approach, natural system like forest, mangroves, watershed, wetlands. Important for agriculture and all. Because countries, if you see, at different income levels, on the same line, states are also at different income level. So following the identical decarbonization path is difficult. Advanced economies already used industrialize using fossil fuel and all. But now, when developing country needs, that's a problem of climate change for energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Three things. Okay. Then institutional innovation. So Pani Panchayat, community-based water governance in Odisha. So over 39,000 plus Pani Panchayat empower communities to manage irrigation system. So these many minor irrigation system across 15 districts. Outcome, productivity increased, agriculture output increased, high value vegetable production, and household income. So you can see with the same resources, it's just by pushing through institutional innovation and more awareness. Odisha gave an example. Okay. Ahmedabad, parametric heat insurance. So protects informal women workers from wage losses due to extreme heat. है ना? They uses temperature triggered automated payouts for a small annual premium. Recognize heat stress as economic risk, not just health issue. Financial innovation linking with climate risk with social protection. Okay, if we talk about Uttarakhand, it's community radio of disaster preparedness. Mandakini ki आवाज disseminates early warning, advisory, recovery information. Okay, so as soon as meteorological department gives, that connects to the local communities. Communication is very important. If you see country like Singapore, if they want to communicate with the whole country, they send one SMS that reaches everyone. And this, for the first time, we have seen during COVID. By raising COVID awareness or telecom fraud, we send messages. I hope you must have received messages from Government of India. Call from Amitabh Bachchan regarding COVID and all. है ना? So these are the good things that India has done. Jodhpur, net zero community cooling station. So public cooling shelters using passive cooling, solar power, traditional architecture. Indoor temperature recorded around 8 degrees cooler than outside. So this is very, very important. Kerala, climate resilient agri value chains, KERA project. So again, this is climate resilient crops, farmer produce alliance, agriculture MSMEs. है ना? Enhances resilience while boosting farmer income and rural employment. Yes, so Geetu lives in Assam, and Assam every year, and we have seen that Brahmaputra goes naughty, and we have never learned anything from that. So disaster management, NDMA sends this. Mitigation, transition to low carbon economy. Balanced pragmatic energy transition, multi-pathway mitigation strategy aligns with decarbonization with energy security, affordability, and growth. Okay, emphasis on sequencing and transition carefully. Adequate firm, dispatchable power alongside renewables. So adaptation is there, like climate resilient infrastructure we are building, disaster resilient housing we are doing. So cost is there obviously, but India is a voice of global south. Now rapid expansion of non-fossil. So we have seen a lot of things about non-fossil. Paris Agreement 2030. Okay. Achieving this target about 5 years ahead of Paris Agreement goal. So 50% total installed capacity non-fossil fuel. Again recorded 34 GW of non-fossil fuels capacity, solar and wind. So India is doing great here. National Solar and Distributed Renewable Energy, Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, launched in Feb 2024 to provide free solar electricity to 10 million households and support rooftop solar deployment. So subsidies and all, everyone knows. And a PM Kusum and rooftop solar scheme. So continue rollout of solar pumps, decentralized solar capacity, reducing diesel consumption and promoting energy security. Rooftop solar will be very, very helpful. Policy and financial support for renewables. So here there are policies, subsidies are there. That's why people are moving towards rooftop solar. Then again, regarding battery also, viability gap funding they are providing. Remember in the last lecture, I have explained what is viability gap funding. It means if the program or any scheme is not profitable, then there is a viability gap. Okay. So that government fulfills. Enhance power purchase agreement grid so that we have renewable output continuous. Green hydrogen and sector coupling. The National Green Hydrogen Mission aims at producing 5 million tons every year. So you can see again, hydrogen is also one of the source. And in Tamil Nadu also we have seen the first fully hydrogen equipped vehicle. That is public transport, bus. Nuclear energy expansion. So civil nuclear power sector to private firms. So again, this is a good opportunity to produce energy, and when the private sector will be there, so efficiency will be there. 100 gigawatt towards nuclear capacity 2047. So you can say that is also a very good step. Then carbon market development. What is carbon credit trading system? So it is India's emerging domestic carbon market, greenhouse gas emission through market-based mechanism. Carbon credits, as I told you that Indore sold to Gujarat government ash and earned 300 crores. From that ash, Gujarat government is making something. Okay. Then institutional framework implemented under the Energy Conservation Act. So here energy consumptions and conservation both. Right now, when there is like even a smallest of electricity cut, there's huge amount of cost involved in that. So it will ensure transparency, credibility, environmental integrity, etc. Okay. What are key features? Transition from energy efficiency trading to full carbon trading. Focus on emission intensity rather than absolute caps. Gradual expansion across sectors and gases. Okay. And tracking systems are also there. So economic and climate significance. So it will reduce mitigation cost through flexible compliance. Very important. Compliances are huge cost. Creates a price signal for carbon and encouraging low carbon investment. Supports India's INDC target, nationally determined contribution, long-term net zero pathway, and position India within the global carbon market architecture. So India is doing very well in comparison to the developed countries. What is Mission Life? Mission Life is India's global initiative promoting environmental conscious lifestyle. Launched to shift narrative from mindless consumption to mindful and deliberate utilization of resources. Very important. Because people start pumping the water from the ground. Water is free, and then other things are also free. So other things means, in simple sense, water is free, electricity is free. Keep on pumping. So behavioral and societal change we need in order to promote this. What are key objectives? Mobilize individual and community action for environmental protection. Influence consumer behavior, demand patterns towards sustainable products. Support circular economy practice such as reuse, repair, recycling. And you can see the diagram here. Complement technological mitigation with lifestyle-driven emission reduction. Okay. Can anyone tell me in the comment section on Zoom and everywhere from wherever you are connecting? Can you tell me what one step do you take to save our environment? Like it can be as simple as that. For example, I save the extracted water from RO and I put it into washing machine for reusing as washing my clothes. This is one small step that we do. So what exactly you do in the chat box? Please tell. Because RO water को देखते हुए ना बहुत दिल दुखता है. Yes, that's great. Don't take plastic. Because if demand will be reduced, they will stop producing it. Yes. So there's always like a black bag. Disposable bags. Separate trash bins, carrying clothes bag with me. Yes, perfect. Use dustbin. Every room has a dustbin where I live. ठीक है. देखो घर में तो सभी मेरे हिसाब से साफ सुथरे रहते हैं. It's about outside the house, है ना? Yes. If you sit in my car, you will feel that it's like a garbage box. Because I do not throw outside, so everything is like in my car. and then I have to clear it, okay, later on. But that's one of the thing. Yeah. Taking carry bag is the biggest thing, okay, and that is what I should feel, that everyone should charge for carry bag. Every shopkeeper must charge 5 rupees, 10 rupees, exorbitant amount for carry bag. Okay, nice, great. Okay, plants are also helpful, yes. Yes, multiple use of cloth. I think the cloth bag or the paper bag is best, and reusable bags. Even same Tanvi. राजाओं टाइप जिंदगी जीने की आदत है ना, इसीलिए. Saving electricity and water, reducing single use plastic, using public transport, cycling, walking, adopting sustainable food habits, है ना, promoting water waste segregation and recycling. So these are the examples. Okay, so आप में से सभी लोग like save करते हैं electricity and water, है ना. And then single use plastic, so reducing that. Using public transport, generally we don't, but because cycling, walking is difficult in our country. है ना, adopting sustainable food habits, है ना, promoting waste segregation like wet waste, dry waste, etc. Okay, global significance. India at international forum as people-centric climate change, climate model, global south, north-south divide. India is bridging that as well, and positioning behavioral change. Very important behavioral change. Okay. Yes. Even big brands are adopting, but it's all about those sabji wala and all. They don't use it. They have a problem. Yes, perfectly fine, Divya. So climate finance, you can see, refers to financial resources mobilized to address, say, climate change. Mitigation means reducing emission. Adaptation means building resilience. These two words are important. Keep in mind in the examination hall. Okay. From public, private, domestic, international sources, guided by the principle of common but differentiated responsibility. Common responsibility for protecting the climate, differentiated responsibility according to our own capacity. Now, types of climate finance, it means by purpose. Okay, what's the purpose? By source, it means who will give. Domestic, international, private, or blended means all. Okay, global climate finance architecture. Global climate finance, global environmental facility, adaptation fund, loss and damage fund, multilateral development banks like World Bank, ADB, AIIB. They fund developed countries committed to mobilizing 100 billion annually for developing countries. But obviously the gap remains, and आपको पता है how developed countries are behaving. So heavy reliance on domestic public investment, use of sovereign green bonds, government backed, so people will buy, people will earn money, interest. Viability gap funding for renewables, so if they require more cost and less earning, government should provide viability gap funding. Production linked incentive scheme for clean tech and carbon credit trading scheme. So strong push for affordable and concessional international finance to protect climate. है ना? Key issues and challenges are always there, like finance gap is the biggest challenge. है ना? Finance gap is the biggest challenge. So climate finance often comes as loan rather than grant. So debt burden is increasing for developing countries. That is a problem. Emerging trends. Rise of ESG investing. Taxonomy framework, green taxonomy, you must have heard about in the budget as well. And then de-risking, result, etc. So focus on just for transition, climate resilient development, etc. सिविक सेंस ही तो बेटा अविनाश प्रॉब्लम है इस देश में। प्रॉब्लम ही सिविक सेंस की है। सरकार नहीं देश को साफ रख सकती भाई। सरकार ने मशीनें लगा रखी, लोग लगा रखे, बट जितने लोग गंदा करने वाले हैं उससे कम है ना साफ करने वाले। सो वी हैव टू लर्न, सिंपल, नो अदर ऑप्शन। नाउ हाउ विल यू ब्रिजिंग द फाइनेंस गैप? Okay, so currently they are inadequate and costly. MSME, urban infrastructure, hard to abate sectors, heavy reliance on domestic finance market. So finance gap इसीलिए है. India's effort to mobilize sovereign and municipal green bonds, so India is issuing that. Regulatory and policy support, so 100% FDI under this automatic route, renewable energy. So India is mobilizing finance. But these finance, I think, when the people are littering, people are not following, people are like in winters, you must have seen people are burning everything. And if you see in your colony, guards are doing this. They're putting everything in that fire just to keep them warm. That is also contributing towards pollution in winters. Then role of DFIs, organization like NABARD, etc. Insurance and risk mitigation, so it must also be there. And insurance, because coverage against climate risk, vulnerable sectors like agriculture, MSME. And disaster resilience, so NDMF and SDMF. You must have received the message from SMS from NDMF, and not exactly MF, but National Disaster Management, NDMA. Strengthening domestic financial market like deep and liquid bond market. So these are crucial because climate infrastructure is long gestation period. I hope you remember long gestation. I have explained in previous lectures already. Local currency bond markets allow urban local bodies, states to raise finances. Persistent challenge like high cost of capital for climate projects in India. Limited access to long-term international institutional finance. Underdeveloped risk sharing credit enhancement mechanism. Because new technologies are required. Okay. Strengthening the domestic financial system. So bonds are important because people must feel that investing in environment is also lucrative. Here people are not investing. The reason is simple, they don't get a return out of it. Role in climate sustainable finance. So like corporate is a role, sovereign green bonds help in financing renewable energy projects. Okay. Then reducing external vulnerabilities, like reducing reliance on volatile foreign capital flows for climate. You have to reduce that. Maintain macroeconomic stability during global financial shocks. So the priority must be always climate unless and until you are facing certain kind of shocks. And improving liquidity and market depth, like broadening investor base, insurance बढ़ाओ, उससे funds मिलेगा because insurance money is not being withdrawn. Okay, pension funds, retail investors. So enhancing secondary market trading, strengthening credit rating mechanism and transparency. Okay. This is mobilization of sovereign green bonds. Okay. Then international climate finance and the role of multilateral development banks. So under Article 9 of Paris Agreement, developed nations are obligated to provide financial resources based on equity and CBDR-RC principle. 100 billion is the annual goal. Okay. Real constraint, cost, not just about quantity. Okay. So key issue is not just insufficient fund, but high cost of capital is a problem. Because developing countries are having low credit ratings of returning the money, perceived investment risk, and a structural biasness in global financial system to give to only those who can give return. Okay. Limitation on the current MDB model. Like MDB tend to follow a risk-averse lending approach, prioritizing AAA credit rating. Now you remember who will give money to Pakistan. So that's the problem. So expand use of guarantees, insurance, first loss capital, blended financial instrument. So this is how you get funding. And without funding, you can not do anything. Cannot do anything. Evolution of environmental regulation. So they've explained briefly. This was the first thing India began taking shape in 1972 Stockholm conference. When you go to Indira Gandhi Museum, that was her like prime ministerial home or office. You will see the pictures of this Stockholm conference. Water Act 1974, then Water Cess Act 1977. Bhopal gas tragedy led to landmark Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Umbrella law, empowering center to set standards and issue rules. Then institutionalization of environmental clearances. Environment Impact Assessment. NGT 2010, National Green Tribunal. But corruption is ruining everything. Corruption is ruining everything. Shift towards market-based incentive mechanism. Perform, achieve, and trade. Energy certificates. Development of carbon market framework. Emission trading scheme in Surat. So that demonstrates pollution markets can reduce emission. Compliance cost is also a huge issue. Transition to risk-based and recent reform phase. Okay, so you can see these are the part of current affairs and important for your exam. All factual information. Okay. All factual information. You don't have to remember everything, Vishaka. You just have to remember few initiatives, some data, some funds. Like for example, if you take away from this lecture, what are the takeaways of this lecture? You know what India has to do by 2047. India has to do what? Net zero by 2070. And India has funding issues. What are the areas of funding? Private, public, international, and the combination of all. So you have fodder. You don't have to remember each and every detail. But when they talk about reforms, so you should remember Parivesh, digital single window platform. Okay, so some schemes like this will help you in giving value to your answer. Recent reforms in environmental and clearance regulation include. So shift in regulatory approach, move from rigid procedure, heavy regulation to risk-based, outcome-oriented. Okay. Focus on predictability, transparency, and ease of doing business while maintaining environmental safeguards. Okay. Digital single window, Parivesh 3.0. Single window portal for environment, forest, wildlife, CRZ clearances, because this is important for developmental perspective. And this integrates baseline environmental data, land banks for compensatory afforestation. So if you are building something here, deforestation is there. So you are doing afforestation in some other place. Okay. Smarter compliance, environment audit rules 2025, certified third-party environmental auditors, rationalization based pollution like red, orange, green, blue, white categories, pollution index, encourage differentiated regulation, stricter norms for high polluting sectors. Okay, streamlined clearances for strategic sectors. Like for mining is a critical strategic sector, atomic minerals. So we need to do it as soon as possible. Market and incentive like afforestation, green credit program. Okay, EPR, extended producer responsibility. So this is how the action plan must be transparently communicated to all the stakeholders. Like thickness norms for carry bags to improve recyclability. Ban on identified single-use plastic items like polybag, single-use. New environmental rules. Manage for contaminated sites rules. Identification, remediation, decriminalization and trust-based governance. Like minor offenses, major environmental law. Decriminalize. It means shifting imprisonment to monetary penalties. जेल में डालने से अच्छा कुछ फाइन लगा दो. जन विश्वास reforms. Rationalize green belt norms. So there are green belts. Cover requirement for industries. If you're linked with pollution, you have to make a green belt. Okay, so conclusion towards a green, resilient, and competitive India. That's the aim. Green growth as a core strategy in climate resilience. Energy transition, we need industry competitiveness and urban infrastructure transformation. It means it's not like that we have to halt the economic development. What we need to do is we need to, in simple sense, we need to think about the area where you have environment for economic development or economic development that has been supported by environment. Okay, so write one paragraph before we end this. You write one paragraph quickly. Economic survey argues that climate change must be addressed through. Economic survey argues that climate change must be addressed through a development centric lens. A development centric lens that balances growth imperatives. While environmental sustainability. Okay, put a full stop. India remains highly vulnerable to climate shocks despite low per capita emission. India remains highly vulnerable to climate shocks despite low per capita emission. Despite low per capita emission, comma, its climate strategy prioritizes energy security, comma, emission intensity reduction, and climate adaptation over premature decarbonization. Very important point. Emission intensity reduction and climate adaptation over premature decarbonization. This chapter emphasizes, after full stop you write, this chapter emphasizes the equitable global climate action. Equitable global climate action requires affordable finance, comma, technology transfer, and differentiated responsibilities, without which climate ambition risk undermining development outcomes. Okay, so that's it for this chapter. Okay, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you, Aditi, in the chat box for pasting the whole paragraph.